Goodbye. Bye.
Hey everyone, this is Cynics, and I'm back from my exciting Anime Expo weekend. Hopefully there's at least one or two of you who are checking out these videos because of that. That would be great. But anyway, I'm going to actually be doing two faces in this video because I have a lot of these little fringe faces left to do, so I figured it'd be a good chance to do two simple things and talk about two completely different things, hopefully. And that should make it a complete video. So, for the first part of my little double header, I'm going to be doing this face way up here that has this lined circle around it, and I'm going to be using that circle to create this strong accent color of red. So that should make it slightly more interesting to look at. I think the circular shape, even though it's hidden, the brain recognizes there's a circular shape going on. And that kind of draws the eye in. It's sort of like a false focal point when you could recognize the shape. Your eye will be drawn in over to that side and say, oh, there's a circle over there. You better see what's going on over there. It's just kind of comforting also to the eye to have those geometric shapes. So, for the skin tone, I'm actually going to be basing it around that red colored lighting, so it kind of blends into this background. And to do that, I'm just picking my red tone and then just going into my color wheel and adjusting the color to make it slightly more orangish or, slightly more skin toned. Or for the hair, I'm making it slightly more desaturated and slightly more brownish looking. But always starting with that red kickoff point to get my colors to look properly situated within that color scheme. So, also, there's one other thing you might have noticed, and there's a couple little letters around the edge, and that also falls into the same idea as with the circle, in that you're creating something that the eye can identify with, and you'll see those letters and you'll be like, oh, I can identify, that's a English alphabet, an E or whatever. And that makes it very kind of interesting to the eye, at least. Makes your brain think a little bit as to what you're looking at. It also creates a little bit of a false focal point and stuff like that. I'm sure someone could write a whole book on all the interesting things about using typography and text in art. But it's definitely a fun thing to play with, so I recommend you try it yourself. And I like to draw, hand-drawn letters, but you can also try doing art and stuff using, just basic text in Photoshop and whatnot. So I'm basically putting on these really simple highlights. I went for a really simple scheme with my coloring of this face. And here I'm actually taking off and on the line art because you'll notice, or maybe you'll not notice, but sometimes when you draw the faces that don't have the proper or that default coloring scheme that you may be used to, if you're using, say, a strange, red lit scene or some kind of weird coloring scheme, sometimes you'll lose the form and you won't be able to tell what you're looking at without your line art. So I wanted to make sure that even without the line art, you could tell it was a face and you can tell basically everything about it, where the nose is and all that good stuff. So it seemed to work pretty good. I think it reads pretty well without the line art. So here I'm just kind of trying to add some texture and stuff to the circle and just kind of make it look more artistic and all that good stuff. And one last thing, actually, I'm actually putting in some reflected light on the characters' heads that were right around it, and that's just to kind of make it flow better with the rest of the composition. Even though technically they're not existing in the same world, it's kind of fun to at least make them play with each other a little bit like that with the reflected light. So now we're on to our second phase, and I'm kind of messing around a little bit with the hair color and stuff. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I think I decided basically that I wanted to do something that didn't have any strong lighting source, or just kind of a very soft lighting source. And maybe the lighting source was behind the character or something like that. So kind of working with these dark midtones and not doing anything too drastically filled with contrast or anything like that. I did a little bit of shading on the front of the face, and that's just to kind of show the form. But obviously it's not a very strong value change in that lighting. It's just kind of to kind of make it more interesting than something that's completely flat. Um, so I'm going to be noodling around with this a lot. Once again, I'm doing some of the same tricks, trying to bring some red tones into the middle of the face. I'll try to bring some yellowish tones into the top of the face and some either green or, since this is a girl, maybe even some more just pinkish and red tones into the bottom of the face. That's just kind of standard fare to make it look more lively. I think I've talked about that a lot in the previous faces, but that's, you can never practice that enough or whatever. It's always good to have those hue changes in your skin tones and all that stuff. So, while I'm messing with that, this seems like a good time to bring up go back to the other one, and I want to see if you guys can remember what the letters were that were around the circle. And if you don't remember, there was a E, an X, a P, and a E. So this is kind of a double-edged thing because obviously what it's kind of meant to hint at is the word expect. And that's kind of for the viewer and for the artist too. But first of all, for the viewer, obviously, things like the circle and even the letters, they didn't spell a full word. But the viewer might have expected them, they might not have put that together, but they're going to they're going to fill in the blanks themselves. Let me phrase that better, yeah. They're going to fill in the blanks themselves, and you can use that to your advantage a lot with art. You can do stuff that doesn't quite have details, that isn't fleshed out, and you rely on the viewer to actually fill in the details with what they expect to see. And that's kind of a trick to make things look better than they actually are, because the human eye usually has more interesting and dynamic control over what you're looking at than your brush stroke might allow. So sometimes you want to leave things a little messy, a little blurry, and let the viewer see what they expect to see. What they expect to see. I'm stumbling all over those words right now. But anyway, back to my face for a little moment here. I'm painting above the line art here. I think I did a lot of painting above the line art. Basically, after I had established those base tones, I really decided to go back in and really start bringing in all my paintings above the line art, like I've been doing with some of the other stuff, and get rid of as much line art as I could, really make it painterly and stuff. So, while I mess around with that a little bit, let me go back to the word expect and talk about the other side of the coin, and that is the artist and what they expect from their work. I feel like the word expect is very important because a lot of times people practice stuff and they do a lot of art practice in paintings and maybe reference stuff or just any various practicing thing they want to do. But a lot of achieving what you want out of art comes from your getting past your own mental hurdles. And the best way to do that is to expect good things. When you're practicing stuff, you want to expect that practicing will make you better. It's not enough to simply practice, especially if you're going to have a negative attitude and be like, oh, I'm just going to keep practicing, but I never get any better. I'm never going to get any better, because you won't. There's so much about art that is based around those mental hurdles of expecting yourself to create something properly when you take a pen to your canvas or whatever your canvas may be. If you're a sculptor or whatever, you got to have that attitude of expecting good things to come out, or simply expecting that what you're doing will improve your art, no matter what you're doing. You can even just be sitting around looking at other people's art. You can be watching movies or whatever. If you expect that watching these things or doing these things is going to make you a better artist, chances are it will. And that's a very important thing to understand, especially when you're starting out in the art world. You never want to be looking at things and going, oh, this isn't going to make me a better artist. I'll never be a great artist. Just always expect that the things you're doing will help you improve. So, enough rambling about the word expect. I'm sure there's better words out there. Back to the face for a bit. You can see I added some highlights to the hair, but nothing special, just a little bit of highlights. And I kind of wanted it to go in a circular motion around that highlight, around the part in the hair, just to kind of make it look, I don't know, more pleasing to the eye. So I'm doing a lot of stuff, messing with the hair, bringing in strands of hair. I'm going to bring in some color on the shirt, or make up a shirt actually, because I didn't really have one. I'm just going to fill one in with some darker tones and kind of mess around, try to fill in this area between the two characters, once again working on my interaction between two different faces, just so that I don't mess either one of them up. I don't want to take anything away from what I've already done with the stuff I'm doing now, so you got to be careful about that, because that'll sometimes happen. Adding some flyaway strands of hair here and there, and basically checking my work, and I'm pretty happy with it overall. I'm gonna mess around with it a little bit, but I think I realized that, okay, this works for something that doesn't have any strong direct lighting. It's just kind of very bland mid-tones and kind of muddy actually, but I think that works enough with what I wanted to accomplish. Because sometimes it's a good thing to work on seeing how much you can accomplish without much value change, and or seeing what you can accomplish with tons of value change. You want to always be testing your extremes. So I actually really like the way this face looked in the black and white. You can see it flickering off and on sometimes here and there, and I was pretty happy with that. So I think I'm pretty much done with it for the most part. Just kind of filling in some of the edge work and stuff like that, kind of messing with the hair in the back, just kind of doing detail stuff that doesn't really matter. And you can see there's a slight cut here because I wanted to, actually I came back to it and I'm like, oh, this will give me a good chance to mess with some of the other things. So I'm actually picking an FX brush, and that's something in Painter. It's under the brush selector. There's a category called FX brushes. Like special FX, if you don't know what but it's basically the letter F and X. And those are interesting brushes, and one of my favorite ones is the glow brush, and all it does is you select a value. Usually you want to select something that's very dark, like near the bottom, basically no value, but slightly saturated, and then you go in with that, and it'll just completely brighten up, it'll like raise the value and the saturation, and that creates a very glowy look, and it's great for direct lights. Like if I had something on a mechanical robot or something that has like an actual light on it, I like to use the glow brush around it, and that'll make it look like it's, you know, really lit up. Or for something like this where obviously this character was backlit, I wanted to have, say, the sun behind her or some kind of sunlight, and I used the glow brush to really make it look like there's a bright, strong light coming from behind and kind of going through her hair and really creating a lot of this, you know, radiated light around the back and around the front of her face too with the other strands of hair. And the glow brush makes that extremely easy. It's definitely one of those, you know, kind of easy shortcuts that some artists use. Some artists like to use a lot of textured brushes and stuff like that. If you learn, however, to do what the glow brush is doing on your own, that's always a good thing too. If you can do it by hand, like do it more traditionally, that'll always look better than what the computer does for you. So, also, yeah, that kind of brings up another subject, but it's always important to understand what a brush is doing, whether it's like a sharpen brush, like if you want to understand it, what does the sharpen brush do? It actually just adds a lot of bright and dark pixels, like kind of spaced out, but kind of spread next to each other, so you have like a gray area. You just keep rubbing it with like a sharpen brush, and it'll just keep adding a lot of a lot of darker blacks and lighter whites in that area that you're brushing, and that creates a lot of, well, basically that creates a very sharp-looking picture. So it's always important to understand things, and with the glow brush it's just taking whatever values are underneath it and using the color you selected and making it more saturated and more lightness toward more higher value toward that color. So I think I rambled on enough for this video, and hopefully it was at least slightly entertaining in some way. I'll be back with another video shortly, so I appreciate you watching.